And we're back.
And we're back. Ding!
I rewatched that episode the other day and was like crying on my couch.
So good. Oh, I miss being in person. And I also miss recording every week, which we're back.
We're back. For those of you who don't know, we've kind of like, we haven't been recording the way that we have usually done in the past because of the holidays.
Yeah. We batched and somehow we're able to still release every week. It felt, I don't know about you, did it feel kind of like, I was like, how are we? In my mind, we needed like 6 weeks of content, but it was really only like 3 episodes that we needed to have like pre-prepared for the holidays. But in my mind, the holidays was like this super long amount of time that I couldn't.
I mean, it did feel long. Like it felt like since you were in California up until now, we were on like this little hiatus break, which was almost a month ago, right? When did you come to LA?
Dude, I came. It was almost 2 months ago. It was
2 months.
It was like early November, because our live stream was on November 11th, I think.
Wait, I'm looking at my calendar.
Or 13th.
Oh,
Monday.
Shit. Yeah. I'm thinking that was December. Holy crap. That was 2 months ago.
Yeah, it was literally 2 months ago.
Okay, wild. Hi, guys.
Yeah. So I feel like things have been in a different mood since then, because we just kind of were more like in the back end, less like, you know, we for like 3.5 months we were recording every single week, and then we had our alternating cadence of cadence. Oh my god, I can't even speak. Alternating cadence of who is editing. So anyway, we were just reflecting how we're super excited to get back onto the mic every single week, to get back into our groove, just like do the thing. And sorry, I have to give a fucking side note of the fucking tarp that is flying around in the background outside of my window, because it's so windy here right now, and there's roof construction, so there's a tarp on it, and it came unhinged because of the wind. So if you see a shadowy figure behind me, it's the tarp.
The tarp is here for the episode. It's
tarp
like, I'm in,
here.
guys. I'm here. I'm out of my mind.
Literally, it's like it's like hitting a lot of things. Anyways, hopefully that doesn't become a problem. My window just like shatters in the middle of the episode. I don't want to speak that into existence, but it would make a good social clip.
It would. High engagement post.
Oh my god. So yeah, we're back. It feels good. What are we talking
Happy
about?
Happy birthday.
Today? Oh, thanks. Yes, it was my birthday 2 days ago, because we're recording this on Monday, January 8th. Yeah, I had a good birthday. It was fun. It was my first one really being away from the fam in a long time, so it was good. It was really busy, but it feels good. I feel like I'm in a new energy.
You had a fest at your house.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I threw a fucking banger. There was
You're
fireworks.
like, I'm gonna have a little tea party, and then it turns into a banger.
Yeah, well, the daytime was like the wholesome tea party, and then the nighttime was dance party.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah, it was really fun though. We like had the disco ball decorations, and highly recommend doing a collab playlist with people for a party, because it just makes it so fun that people can like throw their jams on there. And yeah, everyone danced. Like that was my one goal, and I was like, I don't know how. Like I don't really want to force people to dance, but somehow I need everyone to. So managed to do it.
You're like, you're gonna fucking dance because it's my birthday.
Yeah. Turn into like a bridezilla of birthdays.
What's up, guys? I'm Nikki.
I'm Bella.
And this is the Out of Our Minds podcast, a playground for mystics and self-explorers to journey through the vast realms of the universe, cultural landscapes, and spiritual expansion.
Join us weekly as we dive into thought-provoking discussions that unveil the mysteries of existence and nurture the growth of our consciousness. So what do we want to talk about today? We wanted to take some time to discuss our greatest takeaways from 2023.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat down after our meditation and wrote down some like big themes that I feel like were the biggest sources of lessons for me in my own life. And I think you did the same, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But like overall, what was your vibe for 2023? I feel like I personally know it because I read through the thing that you posted on
Substack?
Yes.
Yes.
And for anyone who doesn't read Bella's writing, go subscribe to
Yeah,
her.
I started to write again on Substack. I started writing on there a couple of years ago. I think I can't remember at this point. I want to say 2021, like a couple of years ago now. When I was really embracing just my love for being a writer, and I just love that medium. But so yeah, I like took a 6-month-ish break, and now I'm back on it, which has been really fun. I was inspired to go back actually because of our friend Jenny, who also has an amazing publication on there called Guided. And yeah, I wrote like a reflection piece for my birthday, and just, I mean, this is something I had thought of a little bit over the new year, but I kind of treat my birthday as like the official new year, because that's when I kind of get my energy back after the holidays. And yeah, I feel like the theme for the year was, I just keep thinking like it was all about persevering with consciousness, and persevering meaning like I kept showing up, I kept going, and just kept like stoking the flame of things that I had started years before and just have been continuously working toward. And I just felt really glad that I kept going, basically. Like just at the end of the year, I was like, yeah, I just kept doing it. Like I never gave up, and it feels really good to know that you kept going, even if you're, not necessarily near your quote unquote end goal of the bigger picture, but just getting to like pat yourself on the back and be like, yeah, I just kept showing up and kept doing it and kept believing myself. It's a really good feeling. And so yeah, that was kind of my theme. My word going into 2023 was, it's like so random looking back, but it was preposterousness, like to just be like unhinged basically, which honestly came to life in some indirect ways, and just kind of the energy of like, yeah, I don't know, taking action on stuff and showing up and doing the thing and not being worried about what other people think. But then I look back and it was definitely more about perseverance and like commitment to the overall vision. And then, like healing and rebirth and all these other like sub themes. But yeah.
You had like a big chapter of claiming, I feel like.
Yeah, for sure. That's how the year started. It was me being like, I'm just doing it. Like, this is what I do now. Because I definitely had a phase where you just sometimes feel so unsure about even your identity around your work and your career, especially if you're doing more of an entrepreneurship type of thing, that it takes an energetic like shift to be in the mindset of, I'm doing this now. It's official. I'm not in between. This is who I am now. And that for sure was a great way to start the year, because at least with content creation and social media, it like kicked off a lot of growth and just confidence around showing up online and having that be the medium to show my work. So yeah, claiming energy I think is massive, and seeing how well that worked for me is now something I'm definitely carrying into my new ventures now. And even like around the new elements of human design that I'm incorporating into my business, I'm just like claiming it. I'm like, yes, this is what I do now. Like there's no questions. It feels good in my body, so we're running with it.
She's doing human design readings.
Yeah.
Everyone go get your reading. I'm so excited for you.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's going to be really fun. Yeah. So, I mean, that's honestly another just theme to like think about is, I feel like, and we did this collectively too, which was so cool, is when we got an idea, or when like I personally got an idea, and like this happened in all three cases, individually for the two of us and together, is when we got an idea and we liked it, we just started doing it. And it sounds so simple, but there's something so freeing, and you just learn so much by having that action bias to be like, oh, this excites me. Like this fits in with the way my intuition works and like what I like and what I'm interested in. So I'm just going to start doing it. And you just eliminate all the middle ground of being like, oh, I don't know this or I don't know that. Like beyond just waiting for like the proper, like intuition mechanism to occur, just being like, yeah, let me just try it out and do it.
And as you're talking, I'm having like even a deeper understanding on this path that you go down with an entrepreneurship journey or some sort of like creative venture, that it really isn't about the end goal. And I think as you're speaking, like you hear that all the time, right? Like it's the journey, it's not about the end goal. But as you're talking, I'm realizing more and more that that's where the fun happens, and that's where you get the feelings of fulfillment. It's not when you finally get to the thing and you're like, oh, I did it, now I feel fulfilled. You feel fulfilled every time you battle a limiting belief and you take the action anyway, or you do something that feels scary, or you show up in a way that feels expansive. This journey is literally where you cultivate those feelings from within, and it starts to activate a different energy where all of a sudden the thing and the goal actually doesn't really become the center of your focus. It's just enjoying the present moment and enjoying the journey that you're on.
Oh my God, that is such a good point to bring up, because I was explaining this to you with specifically the human design thing. Is in my, like, consciously, logically, I'm like, I don't really know, like, where this is going to go. And I don't necessarily have this grand idea of, like, how it's going to net out or how it looks in 6 months. And that's different for me than usual, because for so long, because I had this overarching vision in my mind that I could generally attach to some specific metrics of how it played out, it was like, yeah, it's exactly what you're saying, where when you're following a different pursuit, essentially like the pursuit of fulfillment and alignment, that's where you get to play with new project ideas and like take action on things, even if they don't fit into a specific like cog in the machine. And that's what's been interesting about this, is it feels so right, but I'm also like, I don't know where this really quote unquote came from, other than just that it feels good and it satisfies all those, you know, inner work, the inner checklist, but it's not like it actually necessarily fits logically into a bigger plan. And that's what's so funny about it. But what I know makes it so meant to be is because it's not so like pre-thought out and like, oh, then I'm going to do this, I'm going to take it here. Like, I'm like, I have no fucking clue what it's going to look like in 8 months, but I just like it now. So that's what I'm going to do, which is very different.
Can you talk more about this? Because I feel like you're at like the sweet spot of diving into this human design journey, where I think a lot of people will get a lot out of you sharing a deeper insight here on like how you chose to take the next step of like leaning into that path, and what that first initial emotion felt like. Because a lot of people are confused with like, what path do I go down? What's my purpose? You're here saying, I don't know where I'm going to end up, but this is what is my purpose right now. So talk a little bit more about that, because I feel like a lot of people can get a lot out of that.
Yeah. Okay. Great idea. Yeah. So, okay. This is such a great question to dive into more, because it speaks to the specific like internal workings of how to decide what to take action on, what to trust, and even speaks to human design itself and like the tool of how it helps you make decisions for your life. So what happened with me is, I mean, I've been on a journey of learning my own design and being on a self-discovery journey in general for like, I think I learned initially about human design in early 2021, and it led me down a path of kind of asking myself first, like, how do I work? Like, what is the thing that is unique about me? What's my personality? How does my energy work? Like, for example, the personality thing is, I learned that I'm a 1-4, and your personality of 2 numbers. And it basically speaks to like your conscious world and your unconscious world, and how you learn, like how you interact with other people. And I have what's essentially known as like the investigator and the people person, or the opportunist. So long story short, I love learning. I'm very innately curious, and I really like being able to dive into knowledge bases and essentially study them. And like, I loved school. Like in college, I really enjoyed studying, even if it was difficult. Like obviously there's classes I didn't like, but generally that kind of confirmed for me, okay, you have a natural inclination and a personality around studying, reading, like the idea of like getting a certification, or just going deep into some knowledge base, whether it's like esoteric or more science or whatever. So because of that, I've naturally fanned that flame of, oh, you really like to read and you like to, you know, spend hours on YouTube deep diving a certain topic. That's actually divine. So like, that's the part where instead of maybe I would take someone else's advice of, oh no, you should be spending your time doing X, Y, Z. I was like, no, my personality and who I am innately is this investigator type. And so it is correct for me, and it will lead to more alignment to lean into that. So when I have a natural urge at 2 a.m. to look something up and I can't go to sleep until I look it up, I'm like, yeah, this is like divine, I guess. Like, sure, I could go to sleep, but also it's really satisfying for me to look it up and then I'll pass out immediately, which is literally something that happens to me a lot. I mean, this might be common for other people too. You like have something download at 1 a.m, but it's just that those little things that helped confirm, okay, this is actually the universe giving me a nudge toward alignment. So that generally was a way that I started to just become more of myself and embrace the natural innate parts of me. And instead of, it's kind of like the filtering system to know if it's time for you to listen to someone's like else's advice or if you need to just check back in with you. / it's the filter for anything that you receive from the outside world of being like, that makes a lot of sense. Let me see if it fits into my blueprint, for basically, so to speak. So through that journey of just what you would call self-discovery, I've allowed myself to explore the things that interest me, and there's just no shame or no shoulds around it. I'm like, okay, if human design is interesting to me, I'm going to look it up. I'm going to like watch more videos on it. I'm going to binge the podcasts on it and just go down that, because me being in the feeling of flow state with embracing my personality is what causes more alignment. So like the parallel for other people is when I have chills with saying this because this is such a huge element to like why it matters to understand yourself, is when you know, okay, you're the 3, the experimenter, when you push yourself past the fear of failing and you go and try something, you actually get such a net return on A, just feeling in flow, B, the universe then keeps feeding you the things that is meant for you because you're living your design. So that itself has just allowed me to embrace who I am in day to day. And when we embrace who we are, we just feel so much more free to explore and try and fail and whatever. And then with my authority, which is essentially like your intuition, how you make decisions, mine is gut intuition. Nikki has emotional, which is something we've referenced a little bit of, like when I'm making a decision, it's very black and white. It's kind of like this or that. I have a physical pull towards it. And so again, because I'm interested in human design and it excites me, I feel my body literally getting expanded when I think about it or when I watch a video on it. That is confirmation again that my system and the way it works is responding to this thing. And so I'm meant to do it. And it's that simple. And this is where people overthink it because they bring the mind in and they're like, oh, well, I'm in this career path and this is totally unrelated, so I probably shouldn't do it. But your body is actually excited about it, or your body feels at peace with it, or your body is really drawn to it. And that's actually what you should be listening to, because when you dive into that, again, it brings more alignment and ease and flow. So that's essentially on that path of self-discovery and understanding myself. I give myself this permission to follow those urges and to follow that intuition. And it's led me to this point where I was hanging out with Nikki in LA, and I brought the human design book with me, Jenna Zoe's, and we were like reading them and I was interpreting like some aspects for her and we were just deep diving it. And Nikki reflected back to me. She was like, hey, you're like really good at interpreting this. This is so interesting. Like, you clearly like it. You know, maybe you should incorporate it into your business or get the certification. And I was like, funny you should say that, because I was eyeballing the like reader training, and that was just another confirmation. So because I've essentially convinced myself that when I follow what I respond to and when I follow, you know, a sign that says like, yes, do something that excites you, that's my North Star. And that's how I make decisions. So I just start to do it. And what's crazy is then you're in the middle of it. Like, I'm in the middle of building out the back end of my website for it and doing the training and like making content on it. And it's all just feeling so good in my body, which then contributes to feeling so much more in trust and in surrender and not like having to force it happening. And that's kind of the long story short of like the trickle effect, I think, of starting with the bigger funnel of discover things about yourself, ask yourself questions about who you are, no matter like in whether it's with human design or just in your own self-discovery format, because then inching toward the things that add more flow and ease to your life is what makes it divine and like synchronistic and more supported. And then I think that's what communicates out to other people that you're in flow and you're doing things and like it just feels natural to you.
Chills. What is your process of like, so like you're so beautifully demonstrating how it is you really follow your soul's calling. And I think one of the biggest struggles that maybe an Omi would have, or someone that's listening, whether you're a first time listener or have been here for a while, maybe you struggle with this idea of like having the logical mind come in and tell you all the reasons why you shouldn't or can't or should avoid doing something. What's your process of like dealing with that voice and really allowing yourself to still tap into like the soul mission and like what your soul is driving you towards?
Yeah. So the other thing I wrote down when I was kind of prepping for this episode was I had this big theme of that action kills fear almost all the time. And that having what I like to call the action bias, or just like a propensity towards action, is the thing that it kind of just, it gives you so much it takes away the time of those self-doubts like stopping you from doing something. And even if you have the doubts coming up, you're at least pairing them with real life data to support whether or not that thing feels right for you. So even if you're nervous about, starting a venture, if you at least take the first step in whatever that is, like it could be so tiny, that at least brings you, it will build up confidence just because of the fact that you're now in a new place that you have to, face all those self-doubts. Like, I'll give you a silly example because this literally just happened this weekend. When I made this little flyer invites for my birthday party things, I sent them out and I immediately, my mind was all like, it's like these little whisperings. They're not that loud. It's not my main internal voice, but it was like the little devil on my shoulder, just like talking shit, being like, you're like a loser. No one's going to come. Like, no one's going to show up. Like, no one actually wants to hang out. All these things that I'm like, okay, I know these aren't true, but they're just somewhere trickling in there. And that's because I took this action of sending out an invite, right, to my little birthday tea party thing. And because I did that, I have more things coming up in the moment, which is actually a blessing. And this is like something related to subconscious, is like when you take a new action, all of the like deep rooted things come up in your face. And that's what you want, because then you get to pick the new response basically. So you can be like, okay, I have these voices coming up, and I was just able to be like, okay, this is not true. And I see this and I was like, okay, clearly there's a part of me that feels, like insecure or, is afraid of actually fully forming friendships with people in my community. Like just those little things, those fears that we have. And so by taking the action, I gave myself an opportunity to actually face those beliefs deeper than I would if I just didn't do anything. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it totally does. And you're highlighting something that I wrote down that I want to get to after this, but this is such an important practice to have, almost like that dialogue with that part of yourself.
Yeah.
Because I think where a lot of people can go astray or go wrong is when you start to identify with that voice, and then your life becomes almost just like this manifestation of like a safe reality and not really pushing your edges.
Yeah.
So to really reestablish that relationship with the ego and the inner child or the subconscious, whatever it is you want to refer to it as, and really start to have like that loving back and forth response so that you can then go take the action. Yeah. And we've spoken about this before, like when you take the action, you then energetically expand. Yeah. And there's just so many different like angles you can look at this from. Another aspect of this is like the fear of taking the action and then failing.
Right.
And what does that failure then mean to us? If we're making failure mean that it's the end of the world and we can never fail and we're going to die if we fail, then of course that action is going to feel so do or die and scary, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like that's, I think, one of the biggest things I learned in 2023, because it was so flavored with that propensity to take action, that it confirmed for me that it's literally like you cannot beat the combo of taking aligned conscious action and doing the inner work of like nervous system regulation, self-discovery, meditation, like all these things that make you feel generally safe in your body, but then pushing the limit of the context that you feel safe in is what starts to like propel you a little bit more forward, a little bit more confident, more expanded. Like that, I think, is how I ended up being able to look back and feel like I accomplished a lot of things, but even just the feeling in them was what counted, right? Because like there's other goals I didn't achieve. Like in my Substack, I was saying how I didn't make the money that I wanted to, like nowhere near it. But I learned so many other things about like my finances and abundance and trust and business and yada, yada. And the fact that I did take so many actions that just gives you confidence. Like it's just that plain and simple. It kills fear because you prove to yourself that you can do it. Even if you fail, you then have that opportunity to face the self-doubts and the beliefs and whatever. And it's just the most tried and true way for the most part if you're looking to like gain confidence and show up more and like expand something that you currently have, like a business or relationship. It's always paired with that action, and it's just almost physically visualizing, like putting yourself in new contexts to play out the work that you've been doing internally.
I feel like what you are sharing is going to be a really big theme for me this year, because meeting you, I feel like, was very divine because you had that very action oriented theme running through your life already. And you really showed me this way of like going about your career and your like entrepreneurship journey. And I feel like I personally would find myself like holding myself back due to that fear of failure and thinking in terms of my human design, the 3, right? That's the experimenter.
Yeah.
One of my big life lessons is to overcome the shame of like trying different things and maybe leaning into something that would result in failure and not feeling like that's the end of the world. And meeting you really showed me that action does kill the fear, and you just have to freaking do it. Like you have to do it scared. You have to do it feeling like you're not ready. You have to do it knowing there's going to be a messy outcome. Like just fucking do it.
Yeah.
Just do it. And things will unravel and your path will unravel in front of you without you even having to know the end goal and where it is you're actually going. Just fucking do it. Fucking send it.
Yeah, truly. Yeah. And what's beautiful is like, I love that you bring up why this friendship has felt so divine is because then on the flip side, what I've learned from you and it's been so beautiful is like, there's this mastery I see from you of like what I always use this term of called energetic signature behind things, and like the why and like the feminine and just the subliminal things that we kind of can't see, but they make the world of difference in the actions that you take. And so it's like pairing that together is so cool, because then when I was taking action and I was coming up against like my limiting beliefs and my fears and whatever, and like I remember one of the biggest one of these things that came up for us, this was I think like right after we had launched the podcast, and I remember sharing with you that seeing some of the TikToks go viral was like triggering in me this belief that I had that I forget what it was exactly, but it had to do with me feeling like I wasn't capable of going viral, and like, you know, just I couldn't get the TikTok thing, like just couldn't get it. It was a story in me. And talking through that with you was such a powerful mirror to just face that, but bring in like the compassion and the softness and the energy behind it that ends up changing the flavor of action that you take. And when you pair that together, that's like what's so fucking unstoppable. And then when we work together too, it's like, this is what Jenny talked about in our energy reading of, it has that balanced energy of like, sometimes I'll initiate an idea and a vision, and then you have this ability to like bring in the steps and the structure, or like vice versa. And there's just this theme that's like a macrocosm of how individually we both can do this, and how the listeners can apply this is seeing the value in both of them, because it's not one or the other. It's not like one is superior. It's literally putting them together that makes the world of difference. And that's like the whole new earth goal, basically.
Yeah. Powerful. It really is that balance of both of them. And I feel like us having this business partnership together and our friendship and the relationship that we've cultivated over the past year, only a year, has allowed us to both like see a mirror, and then to also strengthen what would maybe need to be strengthened within ourselves that the other person holds already as a strength.
Yeah.
And that action oriented mindset has been something that has really helped me. And I feel like I've hit a new level this year of understanding the importance of it, because I find I can sometimes get stuck in like the feeling and like the conceptualizing things and not really just moving through it in a way that is more action oriented. So now moving into this year, I'm really excited to combine everything that I've learned from you and what you've mirrored to me within myself to really like just fucking send it and take that action, and to not overthink it the way that my mind sometimes will.
Yeah. What is like your major, what like comes up for you when you look back on 2023, and like whether through like a word or a theme?
Well, I had 3 things that I wrote down, and one of them was that failure is a part of the process. And I feel like I have reached and this I feel like is more of a theme that's going to be going into my 2024. So I wouldn't really say that this is something that has helped me. It's something that I've more so realized.
Yeah.
And I think learning my human design has really released a lot of that shame around wanting to like do a bunch of different things and having all these ideas, and maybe one of them doesn't work. But I sometimes will find that I'll take myself to a certain point of safety or a certain point of creation where I feel safe, where there's no risk of failure. And then I pull myself back because of that fear of failure. And completing a task and doing it in a way where I can just feel like I'm detached from the outcome is something that I'm really looking forward to leaning into more, because I think our partnership with the podcast and 2023 gave me insight into how to actually do that. And I think our relationship is very divine, because it really showed me how to apply what we do with our podcast into my own individual business, which I'm like freaking pumped about, because I had to really reestablish my meaning of failure, because failure is not bad. It really isn't. It just means that you're at a point where you're meant to pick up more data and information to then help you with the next step.
Right.
And it's just like a part of the path. It's almost like if you think of like an F1 race, when they like stop in their what's it called? The pit,
like the pit stop box. Yeah.
Yeah. When they stop in the box to get new wheels, it's like they didn't fail. They're just like recouping, regaining their energy.
Yeah.
And then they're back into the races, and they're picking up all the data points as they go and reestablishing their equilibrium and all the things. And if you can view it as a place to just pick up more data and to help you excel on your path forward, it won't feel so scary to bring something into completion.
Yes. Yeah. I'm really curious because this fear of failure is such a big theme. I mean, universally for sure, but then obviously for some individuals even has more weight karmically. I'm really curious for you, this could be 2023 or just generally, kind of like more to speak to more of that internal dialogue and like journey that you've had with confronting the fear of failure and what it feels like to you. I'm curious to know, like, does that make sense of just like what has it felt? Because failure is such an interesting word, because I kind of means something different to everyone, and it's so much rooted in more of like the meaning attached on top of the idea of failure.
Well, that's the thing. I think the ego disguises this fear of failure with procrastination, overthinking, holding yourself back and making excuses. These are all surface level manifestations of a deeper root of the fear of failure. And essentially your ego or the subconscious or the inner child is really protecting you from what it believes would be a dire situation of reaching a point of failure and having a threat to your safety. So in order to prevent us from failure, the ego thinks, okay, let's just not do anything and then we'll be safe. And it's this very like illusionary way of approaching, especially an entrepreneurship journey, because you'll find yourself kind of like living in loops and you think you're protecting yourself. The ego deep down thinks it's protecting itself. And then on the surface, you're struggling with self-sabotage or procrastination or overthinking, like how I was saying. And I've had this journey of realizing I don't have a problem with self-sabotage. I don't have a problem with procrastination. And it's not actually a problem. It's just me figuring out how to converse with that part of me that is feeling like failure is a really bad thing and that it would be a threat to my safety. So another aspect of my 2023 that I wrote down that was really eye-opening to me was understanding the healing journey in a completely new level, at a completely new level, because I feel like a lot of people will approach the personal development journey and spiritual evolution and the spiritual path thinking that they're doing all these things to one day reach a point of perfection,
Right.
and then they'll just be fixed. But I've come to realize through my own healing and in the practice that I work in, it's like you are not on a journey of becoming perfect. You're actually on a journey of continuously softening into your heart to have a more loving and compassionate relationship with that part of you that we keep referring to, the ego.
Yeah.
And it's a constant like recalibration of how you converse with that part of yourself.
Yeah.
And it's a sinking into a more loving state of being, to have a relationship with that part of you so that when you are preventing yourself from taking action, it's not, oh, I can't believe I'm not doing this, or I'm self-sabotaging again. Why am I self-sabotaging? You soften into your heart and you realize, oh, wait, there's actually a deeper root here where I can converse with this part of myself in a more compassionate way, and we can be on the same team doing something out of love. So you can view it as you have this like little tiny version inside of you that's your inner child, and the healing journey is about you going from a divided state with that part of you to getting both of those, you and the inner child, on the same team, so that you're hand in hand walking the path together. And every time you're dealing with a challenge, because you're hand in hand, it's going to be such a beautiful process of like moving through it together. And that's where you find peace in life, is when you're not divided, when you're unified. And I've really come to realize that it's not a journey of perfection. Like, I'm not going anywhere. There's no end goal. It's just me navigating life and navigating the challenge as I'm hand in hand with my inner child. And that has been fucking liberating. Like, I finally don't have to feel like I'm on this path where there's an end goal, you know?
Yeah. I see that also really so much as a theme for you in the past year, because just being like on just witnessing the ways that you've navigated different like beliefs and stories and like really, really hard things that like things that are hard to heal and like overcome. And like we've talked so much about just like that fear of being seen. I mean, we had the whole episode on it, but just personally, like getting on the mic and like expressing ourselves in different ways, and like how you were meeting your edges on that. And it just was having like a year that with a big theme of healing and like really holding yourself and embodying new levels of that compassion towards self is so, it's like that foundation that then when you, like you're saying, you feel really inspired this year to like embrace the action, that's what then catapults things so much higher, because you, like a lot of people do all that stuff later in life when things hit rock bottom in some ways. And it's been really, really beautiful to see how you navigate that type of healing and like the softening into yourself, because it's definitely something that I learned a lot from as well. And I just think people don't put enough importance on how much it really does change the game for you to soften into the self and to like have that team mentality with your ego, instead of being like, oh my god, this fucking ego thing, like what a bitch,
or like
kill
whatever. The ego. You don't need to kill the ego.
Yeah,
seriously. It truly is life-changing, like that softening. And I really appreciate what you're saying too. I'm totally receiving that and really appreciate the love and the kind words. But I see it almost as like levels. Like first you have an awakening where you realize, oh, I'm not actually that voice. Or let's backtrack even before that. You live a life thinking that you are that voice. Yeah. So every time you have the thought, you can't do that, you can't achieve that, you're like, you're right, I'm just going to go back and like watch TV and not take the action. And that causes a lot of misalignment, because you have your heart calling you in a certain direction in life. And then all of a sudden you're like, but I can't, like I can't. So the first step is like realizing you're not the voice. And then as soon as you create that distance and you realize, oh wait, I'm not this voice, all of a sudden you start freeing up this mental space to question, can I actually do this? Like, do I need to listen to this voice if it's not me? And maybe you go down the path of feeling like anger and shame and just frustration with having those thoughts. And it's almost like this fighting sensation of like fighting yourself.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was at this point in my path, I would say that I always self-sabotage. And it was like just the epitome of my personal growth journey was trying to overcome self-sabotage and stop like putting myself in these ups and downs where I'm going 2 steps forward and like 5 steps back. And then I realized, why am I like fighting myself? And I learned a lot about compassion and love through working with my own coaches and doing that work of like softening. And I started to understand that the journey actually gets so much lighter and easier as you befriend that voice and you work with the ego to accomplish your goals.
Yeah.
And it's just a life-changing approach to healing. It not only eradicates the need to get somewhere with an end goal, but you also just have like this very light sensation in your body when you're navigating something that would in the past cause you to constrict.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was definitely one of my big takeaways of 2023.
Yeah. Knowing that there's levels is something that I find really helpful to understand, because that was another thing that I had written down as well, was it was actually in relation to judgment and releasing judgment of self and others.
I had one like that too.
Oh, really? Oh my God.
I want to hear yours and then I'll add.
Yeah. So the levels thing reminded me of it because it was really just about that there's levels to the pursuit of releasing judgment. And the reason why that puts me at ease, especially as it relates to like even levels of self-love and like the healing journey, is because for some reason in my mind, when I know that there's multiple levels of it versus like one end goal, it releases that sense of fighting with yourself and getting mad at yourself for messing up and whatever, because you're kind of just like, it's fine. This is like a journey. It's going to take time. And like, how exciting is it to know that naturally in 10 years or in whatever, through some experience, I'll, quote unquote, up level. But so as it relates to judgment, I found this fascinating theme pop up in the past year. And I tie this really closely with my journey being sober curious and not drinking. And I have found that it's like at first there's this caricature of not judging people that you think you've mastered. And then you end up hanging out with people or observing something and just feel this like reaction in your body of like, oh, I don't like that. Or like, oh, spiritual people don't do that. Or like, I don't know, just all the different ways that judgment comes out, whether it's on ourselves or just, catching yourself, observing someone and being in this state of like, I don't like, they're so weird. Like, why would they do that? I don't know. Just like a lack of understanding. And because in the past year, I had so many experiences, one, just hanging out with groups of people that it's not that I normally wouldn't hang out with them. I just hang out with, I don't know how to describe this. Like, I just end up in groups where they're not necessarily people that are guaranteed to have the same interests as me. And because
or like
of that,
differing values.
Yeah, it's just like, differing values, different interests, different lifestyles, like all of that. And because of that, I've had so many opportunities to notice when my mind is judging or making like comments internally about the thing. And it's been cool because then I've noticed how much, one, like the assumption that you are, it's like assuming that you are this like all loving, compassionate person. Just assuming that is not enough, like clearly. But the point is, if you attach this identity that you are this like spiritual, compassionate person, sometimes you forget to actually like make sure you're not being like judgment or like lacking compassion, and that those two things actually take a bit of work and are complex. And that we can actually shame ourselves. Like if a thought comes up of judging someone, sometimes we're just like, shush, 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 go away, instead of looking at it and asking ourselves, well, why do we think that? Is this actually me just being discerning? And is it okay and nothing to be upset about? Or am I judging this person? And do I need to explore how I'm attaching meaning to this action that they're taking that I perceive as incorrect? So it's like you just start to be more curious about how you perceive and think of people. And in doing that, I've found myself to actually embody less and less experiences of judgment, because when I did have a thought that I was like, this seems like I'm like basically just asking myself, am I judging this person? Am I just practicing having a preference and it's okay? Has had me become so much more intimate with the experience of judgment, and then gotten so much better at realizing that then I catch a new dialogue that's like, wow, I wonder, like, I'm so curious about this person's life and what led them to be who they are, because they're so different from me, but like I accept it and it's fine. It doesn't bother me. Like it doesn't give me a physical visceral reaction against like a repulsion towards some person or something. And I have found that to be a really beautiful, unexpected thing that I've experienced in the past year, that I think is just a result of like being curious and seeking to understand more than to divide myself from another person.
Right. It connects to what I was just saying about the voice in your head and unifying them.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, but just projected outward.
Exactly. Yeah. Like because that's the thing where if you just shut down that negative voice, you lose out on addressing it and understanding it. And I think that's the critical piece that I experienced, was even just in sometimes talking it out loud with someone, of understanding like, okay, I don't like, maybe it's like, I don't like this person. I don't vibe with them. And then I'm like, am I judging myself for having a preference? And that, to understand that there's actually nothing wrong with that. It's not me judging. It's me being in tune with my body. And sometimes I think what happens is we put on this mask of like being the nice person who is actually like not listening to their inner signals, just to put on the mask of being nice. And it's not like a true form of compassion, versus if you were to face and be like, interesting, I don't vibe with this person, but can I challenge myself to understand them? And then that would actually lead me to be genuinely kind and compassionate towards them, even if I don't quote unquote like or resonate with them.
Right. Well, what are you identifying as like when you like someone?
Like that you're just, you would want to like hang out one-on-one with them for coffee or some shit. I don't know.
Yeah,
like
which is just vibing with someone.
Yeah, which is vibing with
someone. Which is
like
right. An energetic thing. And
yeah,
I agree. Sometimes you just don't vibe with someone. And that doesn't mean that they're less of a person or less human. And it's okay if you don't resonate with someone energetically.
Yes.
And yeah.
That's like the interesting thing to release judgment on, even in yourself, is because I think sometimes we like opt into this idea that if you are on a spiritual path, then like you should never ever judge or have discernment or preferences over anything. And then I think that actually backfires worse, because you're not being authentic or truthful and honest with yourself, and you're evading the actual journey of becoming compassionate, understanding, while also holding the idea that like you don't resonate or vibe with someone, kind of thing. Like you prove to yourself that they can be true. You can still be rooted in like understanding, compassion, oneness, and also be like, I don't like that thing and I don't want to hang out with you. You know?
Yeah, I guess what I was gonna talk about is kind of the opposite of this. But I'm still agreeing with what you're saying, but I wrote down this is totally different. And I feel like we're going to agree with what I'm saying. I realized in 2023 that spiritual ego is such a thing. And I'm agreeing with what you're saying, how like sometimes people will think they're like holier than thou, and then they don't want to like talk to people, or like when you start seeing your own shadows, then it's very in your face, other people's shadows. It's very obvious to see other people's shadows. And I went through a part of my journey where I was really distancing myself from people, because I was like, that person's toxic, that person has this shadow.
Yeah.
Little did I know, every single person has shadows.
Yeah.
Literally every single person has shadows.
Right.
You have shadows. I have shadows. We all got them.
Yes.
And I think it comes to a point where you discern whether it is you want to be around someone, and if you feel like you are energetically impacted or they cross a boundary because of the way that their shadow is being expressed in the relationship.
Right.
But I have learned that spiritual ego is a real thing. And when you first start this journey, you can start to feel like you're like better than people, when in reality, we're literally all exactly the same, navigating life from our own level of awareness and understanding. And it's not that one person's up here and someone's down here. We're all going through life at the same time, but experiencing different points of our journey with different lessons.
Yeah.
So while someone over here may be learning compassion, this person's learning inner power, and this person's learning about inner peace. And it's all these different lessons that are happening at one. And just because you're learning about inner peace right now, and that person maybe is going through the opposite of inner peace, doesn't mean you need to judge their experience because of what they are going through. And if you actually do love and care about someone, all you have to do is show love. And I think where you and I are talking about two different things is you're talking about like meeting people and just like the first initial feeling you get from people. I totally agree that you can trust and like have that discernment. I think what I'm talking about is like deeper, more long-term relationships that may have existed before you went on this journey, or maybe relationships that you are starting to like see differently because you're having deeper levels of awareness and you're getting to be more sensitive. I think I went through a path of like exiling people and shunning people and thinking I was above people. And then I went through this whole journey this year of really understanding that relationships can be super beneficial to both parties if both parties show up with love and hold each other's shadows in a way where you're conscious of each other's shadows. So I feel like something you and I do very beautifully is like we can talk very openly when we're going through a difficult time. And like I have shown you really deep parts of my shadows that I know you won't judge me for, because I'm being very open and I'm like aware that, okay, this is what I'm navigating. This is what I went through. And you have like this very beautiful way of holding me through that darkness. And I think when we show up with love with relationships and understand that we all have shadows, we take ourselves off a pedestal, or we take someone else off a pedestal, and we understand that we're all just helping each other heal. And the best way we can do that is through compassion and love. And I feel like I had something else. Oh yeah, just allowing others to be on their journey. Because I think a lot of times we'll think about the lessons we're specifically learning and we project that onto other souls or other humans. Meanwhile, that person is actually navigating a different part of their path where they are learning different lessons. So it's really important not to project that outward and to just do your own work of like having that more loving, compassionate relationship with that part of yourself and allowing that other person to navigate that as well. And if you want to help, the only thing you can actually do is show love to them. And that was a big lesson of 2023.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, that's kind of just reminding me of, it's all about the power of and like being able to hold multiple things at once. And that's definitely something that I really focused on in the past year, was just seeing how it's not always about absolutes, basically. Like it's
nothing's black and white.
And just as humans, it's like the goal is not to be suddenly fucking holy and perfect tomorrow, you know? Like it's we are going to I think I further experienced the real life reality of being able to hold and believe so many things at once. And it kind of piggybacks off what you're saying of, you just like practicing a lesson of peace and compassion or whatever it is, and then also having just a true experience of something that's frustrating or getting mad about something like that. We can just allow it all to happen at once. And I think that eliminates so much of, oh, I should be at this point with my, you know, my relationship to my emotions, and I should be here on my spiritual journey. And it's just too much like striving for perfection that doesn't even exist. And
Right.
for me, just in my own life, being able to be like, I believe this, and I also see how this is true. Like, I have had this experience, and I also believe in this thing. And just to not make these like absolutes that it's like, oh, well, if you're saying this, then like, how come you can also believe this at the same time? And that's just our multi-dimensionality at play. And exploring that more consciously, I think, is also really fun and liberating to do for yourself, is to break away from the chains of identity and boxes and like, oh, well, if you identify as a spiritual person, then shouldn't you also blah, blah, blah. And oh, the person that I thought of for a great example of this is, you know, Theo Vaughn.
Mm-mm.
So you probably would recognize his face because this past year, I feel like he totally blew up on like TikTok, and his podcast popped off. He's a comedian, but he's also he's like very spiritually enlightened and
Yes. Yep.
yeah, he's like very wise to just the world of, I don't know, cover-ups, conspiracies. He's also very like spiritually tapped in, but he's also a comedian, and he's like the style of comedian that he would like just make fun of people and things and whatever. And I love seeing him do his thing because he's another proof of, he just breaks the stereotype of what you think a spiritual person is like, or a comedian is like, or like a news commentator, like whatever, like a commenting on current events, like what that person is. Because he has like his unique look and like his little, kind of has like a mullet haircut thing going on. Like, he's total comedian vibes, but then he's also the most like compassionate, emotionally tapped in guy. And I just was like, he's such a great example of that multi-dimensionality, that you could be like ripping on like someone and making fun and like poking fun and like cracking jokes, and then also be this very emotionally tapped in guy who like has these profound spiritual conversations. And I just thought it was really inspiring to see someone embrace his authenticity in that way, because it was just proof of that multidimensionality that we all have, but we constrict ourselves into acting and being certain ways and believing certain things because we think if we have this belief, it cancels out the other one. And I just don't think that that's how it works.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of nuance and there's a lot of dimensions to it. And I think this conversation is really healthy to have because it removes a lot of the shame that could come up when we're on this path and we're like unknowingly trying to strive for perfection that doesn't actually exist.
Yeah.
And I think that's why talking about all the things we've been talking about and my understanding on spirituality and like what it means to actually heal and evolve, it has completely shifted over, I would say, the past 2 years. And it's just given me so much more freedom to be and to like not feel like I have to show up in a specific way. And I think that's where authenticity really gets to shine through, is when you remove that shame of thinking you need to like put yourself in this box. And also, we're all spiritual beings. Like, just because someone isn't doing this work of like reading a Joe Dispenza book or listening to a spiritual podcast doesn't mean they are not already the walking embodiment of the teachings that you're learning. Maybe their soul is actually at a point where they are learning different lessons and they already have that deep within their DNA activated in a way where they don't have to learn it. I know one of my clients now, she always talks about how her husband is such a beautiful embodiment of everything she learns through like Joe Dispenza and everything she dives into with this work, and she feels like he doesn't have to like do all this work of learning it because he just knows it, and he just like the way he talks about it and the way he talks about business and the way he talks about his own personal journey, it's just like a walking embodiment of everything that we talked about in our sessions and what she learns. And it's just a beautiful reminder. And I feel like you talk about this with Milan too. I definitely feel it with Peter too. Like sometimes I'll be like navigating something and then I'll come out the other side and he's like, okay, like you learned the lesson of X, Y, and Z. Like I'm glad you got to that point.
That reminds me of the third thing that I had written down was all about the lessons I've learned in my relationship, which relate really closely to that. Of just really seeing and honoring how each of us is going to be navigating our own path, and that gets more granular in terms of in relationships. We can really subconsciously, whether we know it or not, try to be controlling our partner and the way that they show up and the way that they do life. And when we're like often meditating and doing the more obvious like spiritual practices and our partner doesn't do them, sometimes we're like, can you just come on, like this stuff is clearly so good, like get on the wagon, like why aren't you doing this with me? And I really learned this year so much more understanding and respect for, in my case, seeing how Milan lives his life and how he has so much innate wisdom in him, and he just lives it out in a different way because that's his life path and his like karmic lesson. And the example with him I always think about is he really lives like the wisdom and spirit of the 3D world, which is spiritual. Like it's like made, it's like the physical part of the universe. And he has so much, innate knowledge with that. He's drawn to it. Like he's an engineer. Like that is his spiritual path, is playing with the 3D world and knowing how to marry those things together. This is actually his human design life theme. It's something like marrying like the spirit realm with like the 3D realm or something. And it's so spot on because I then have had an appreciation for those physical 3D aspects that before I might have like subconsciously considered as less than or just not as spiritual. And by recognizing that, it gives me so much more, it releases just the judgment around the way that he lives his life and the things that he does that are super different to me. And he's also had like similar comments to me of like, clearly me and you are in this life to be a lot more hands-on with like the spirit realm of things and those internal journeys. And we have personal karmas versus, at least Milan has like a transpersonal karma, meaning like he's supposed to be more outwardly focused in his life and like more thinking about how he impacts other people, versus we are more focused on just our internal journeys. And that has trickled out into other ways too. I was telling Nikki a story about over like the holiday of this, we were all together with my family and Milan was just like having a day. He was just like doing whatever. It's like a random example of, he was just like having his shadow side show. Like who hasn't fucking had their shadow side show when they're with family? And I had a very conscious experience of catching myself actually not choosing not to try to control it and not to try to like manage how people were perceiving him and if he was aware of how he was being. And I remember just being like, it's fine. This is not ideal, but like just whatever. This is not I'm not responsible for how you behave all the time, and you're on your path. Like just do you. It's fine. I'm not going to get mad at this. And like we didn't even talk about it. And it ended up being so positive because then he weeks later brought it up himself, and I was like, this is why like this works, because then you let the person bring it up. And obviously there's cases where you should say things, but the point is I really felt like it was solidified at the end of the year, that lesson that I had gone through of just learning to not like judge your partner and try to control them, which is hard and is still something I'm learning because it's just something we naturally do out of goodness. Like we want the best, or we like are having an emotional reaction and we just, we would want to say something or do something. But yeah, I think just learning to even seek more understanding rather than like to control or shift the scenario in the context of a relationship has been so life-changing and has brought a lot more ease too, just in like the day-to-day.
And it's in the partnership, in the relationship, that I feel like it's the hardest to learn that.
So hard. It's like, dude, yeah, it's big conditioning that we have too, especially if like however we saw our parents interact or how we see just wherever it comes from, of just the inclination to want to change your partner, even out of goodness of your heart, but then realizing that it's actually tends to backfire. It's a really big lesson to learn, but it's definitely worth it. Like it shifts a lot of the energy.
Yeah, really powerful. I remember when you shared that story with me, it unlocked something within myself, because that's definitely a big karmic lesson that I'm learning, is to really release that control and to allow someone to be on that path. And what I shared before about that big lesson that I had with 2023 and releasing the judgment, I find that my relationship is like the hardest place to do that, because you think it's out of love. Like you think you're like, oh, you just need to show up differently this way. And like, I'm doing this because I love you. Yeah. But it's like, do you actually love them if you're really like just honing in on the shadows? Like real love is seeing their shadows and holding them through that. Yeah. And I'm really harnessing into that on a deeper level, because it has been a challenge of just really reminding myself to release that judgment. And a lot came up over the holidays with being with family, same as you. And it definitely was like a really big container for healing and deep conversations to be had.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a just huge theme, is just really leaning in to the tough parts of the relationship, that when you actually dive into them, the rewards and the closeness and just the learnings from it are exponential. And yeah, the amount of hard conversations I had with my partner in the last year were not fun in the moment, but like after it, you're like, oh, okay, this is what everyone is saying about like why to choose the unpeaceful conversation, because it brings peace later. And I was thinking about our fear of being seen episode, and that's actually something that I really dived into this year in my partnership, was really coming to a point where like it was, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, but it's like when the problem is so in your face that you cannot avoid it anymore. And I had one of those moments in the fall, and it was so hard in the moment, and such a like shadow moment of just being face to face with my fucking bullshit basically in the relationship, and like the things that I needed to finally solve and be honest about. And it was totally all about the fear of being seen, and like unlocking the throat in the moments where you're really afraid to say what's on your mind, or to like speak the intrusive thought, but how much closeness and intimacy it brought to our relationship. And like even it was like a symbolism of reconnection and recommitment to just put it all out on the table, even the things that I was like ashamed of or afraid that would be, you know, unacceptable. And it was really uncomfortable, but it's funny because I thought that in the past year we would get engaged, and that was on the list of things that did not happen, which I look back at as it being perfect, because I feel like the divinity was we ended up having an even like stronger symbol of reconnection and recommitment to the future that obviously no like material item ever could match. But it was just a reminder of that we're going to get the thing that we want, but inadvertently. Like I feel like on my vision board I had the ring I wanted and whatever, and I got the symbolism of it, but completely different.
Funny how that happens. The universe is like, you got this in a different form.
Yeah.
Surrender, bitch.
Yeah. Yeah, seriously. So yeah.
Oh, I love it. I feel like hearing your lessons are just giving me like a deeper point of reflection for what I wrote down, and like vice versa, just like going deeper into the mirroring aspect of hearing both of our sides. Did you have anything else that you wanted to touch on or talk about? I feel like I kind of talked about everything that I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, those were my main 3 things. And yeah, that was kind of it. Just it was a good year. And I'm glad we're talking about it now, because I feel like it's nice to carry the reflections past just like December 31st and January 1st, like to actually take our time with integrating, because I feel like that's really the theme for 2024 is we individually and collectively have been doing the work and in like going inward and learning the lessons and reading the wisdom and blah, 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 blah. And now we're really ready to bring them in and like embody it and step into it. And Jenny Additions, she does every year like a kind of like an energy reading on the year ahead. And her word for this year is rise. And it's all about like, what are we rising into? Like the things that we're meeting up with, like matching up with our highest self, and like new levels of leadership and creation. And the 2023 word that she did was arrival, which I also felt was so spot on, because it was all about like just being more at the place that you like, embodying the energy of what it would be like to arrive at the place you've been trying to go. And so bringing that energy of like, you don't necessarily need to be, you're not trying to go somewhere far away. Like, it's here. The things you want are here and they're right now. And then this year it's all about the rising tide lifting all the ships. Like, what are we growing into? What are we expanding into? There's a lot of like prosperity to come and abundance. And yeah. How does that land with you, the word rise, for the year?
I align with it and it feels good in my body, because my theme is very much around action taking, kind of like how I said with that theme is going to be more of my 2024 vibe. And I feel like rise kind of marries that.
Yeah.
It's like rising to the occasion, rising to the action, really bringing, I view it as like the ideas and the spiritual realm and grounding it into the 3D. And that we need to rise into like a state of action in order to facilitate that process. So that's going to be a really big theme for me, and I definitely resonate with that word rise. I love that. Time to rise, bitch. Rise and shine. Rise and shine.
Rise and shine, motherfuckers.
I love it. All right, should we wrap up? You want to give a little subscribe and comment?
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for listening. It is an honor to connect with you guys as always. It feels so good to be back on the mic, and we are not slowing down anytime soon. We're going to be weekly episodes every single Wednesday. A lot of big things are going to come to the podcast and to Out of Our Minds and the Omis this year. So if you're tuning in and you haven't subscribed or follow, connect with us everywhere, because we always have updates coming and new things, and just to connect with us and chat with us every time, you know, you want to say hi or whatever. But yeah, please spread the word. If you enjoyed the episode, share it with a friend and hit us up. We love hearing from you guys directly. So I feel like, even just as the Omi's entity, between Nikki and I and all of you, and you specifically listening, this year is big. Like, it just feels, even if I just focus it down to the podcast and the community and this movement, this is like the year, I feel like, that the foundation has been built, and now we're just brick by brick building a fucking epic skyscraper city thing, Mecca, whatever the fuck it is. We don't know yet, but we're like,
for all of us to hang out in.
Yes, for all of us to hang out in. Yeah, so it's gonna be a big year, dude. I'm just excited and so grateful for every single one of you. So happy New Year, and let's fucking get it, 2024.
Rise and shine, bitches.
Rise and shine.
Bye guys.